Welcome to the Retrospect podcast, a show where people come together from different walks of life and discuss a topic from their generation's perspective. My name is Ian, and as always, I'm joined by Stoney.
Hello.
And Jason.
Hello, everyone.
How's it going?
Well, I took a pretty good fall this morning.
Oh, no.
But Jason came by and got me and brought me up here, and I almost called y'all and said, you're going to have to do this one without me. So
I'm glad you're not hurt,
just
Stoney.
completely just lost my balance and went crashing down, took out about 20, 30
Were you in
bucks.
the kitchen?
No, I was in the bedroom.
Hmm.
Luckily, because one of the other times I fell in the kitchen, I lost a fingertip.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yep.
I remember that.
Yeah, it's
This is just kind of getting old. I'm gonna be honest with you. This is kind of getting old.
I mean, I could see how that would get very, very frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
I'm here. So to our listeners, please forgive me if I'm not the. What did one of our listeners said? I was piss and vinegar. I was the piss and vinegar guy. So if I'm not full of piss and vinegar today, please forgive me.
Yeah,
So
you're not quite as topped up.
yeah.
Well, let's say this past weekend, I had to make a 1-day trip to Dallas.
Oh, yeah, you told me about that. Or told us about that last
and come
episode.
back. So yeah, that was
It was a long drive.
It was a long drive for one day, and but we hit Dallas traffic about 4:30 p.m.
Oh no, no.
And I'm gonna tell you, there are cars everywhere.
Yep.
The amount of roads in that city that are just going everywhere, and they're building more. The GPS even struggles to keep up because it tells you to go, on this road for 300 feet, but yet it's kind of, am I supposed to be in this one or am I supposed to be in this one? And because they're literally running right alongside of each other. And it's
which one do you use for maps? Do you use Google Maps, Waze? What do you use?
I use kind of a mixture of both. I was using Waze, but Waze was telling us one thing. Google Maps was telling us another thing.
See, I'm a huge Waze person. I love Waze, especially now because I can't remember what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. But Waze makes changes for accidents, construction, and it has instant stuff because other Wazers are putting information in. So it may all of a sudden, it's happened to me driving down the road and it says, okay, you need to take a right here.
Yeah.
Because something's up ahead. And it may not tell you everything that's up ahead, but you kind of know and go around.
Yeah.
And so I like Waze for that.
It was unbelievable. It's how much road work is being built. It's like this city is absolutely just where do they get the money
on a smaller scale. When I took that trip to Houston, just south of
smaller scale, I hate Houston more than I hate Dallas.
I'm talking about like a slightly
Houston's bigger than Dallas.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah,
well,
Houston's actually, I think the latest. I'm gonna have to Google this.
I could have sworn
Houston may be the third largest city in the United States.
I don't hate Houston and the people. I hate the traffic.
And that's what I'm saying.
In case we have any listeners that are in Houston, I don't hate Houston. I just dislike driving in Houston because you can go 2 miles and take an hour and a half.
Yep.
And that's what I don't like about Houston.
For me, the traffic was crazy, but again, I was having to like jump 3 lanes of traffic every time I would get onto a road and it was like, okay, jump 3 lanes and take an immediate right. And I was like, okay. And then I would do that. And then it would be like, okay, you're only going to be on here for like 100 feet. You got to jump 4 lanes to the left. And I'm like, I'm that guy now that I hate where I'm sitting here like, sorry guys, I just have to like, anyway. So I think that was probably a mixture of the maps app that I was on.
Houston is number 4. In the United States, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Houston.
Get out!
How far down is Dallas?
Philadelphia, Phoenix, San Antonio.
San Antonio's bigger than Dallas.
San Diego, and then Dallas.
Well, you see, you have to think about this. Dallas is Dallas, Fort Worth, but Dallas itself isn't that big. But when you add Fort Worth,
they always they include the Metroplex.
Right. That's Dallas is actually kind of like 3 big cities that have kind of come together.
I see.
And so Dallas is okay, but Houston is one city. Dallas is Dallas, Fort Worth.
Cool. Makes sense. was like, there's no way.
And I'm going to say, for that, I mean, driving in that city and people that are having to drive in that every single day, I'm like, and when I tell you there's just every lane, chock-a-block full of cars, don't matter which direction, which side street, it was all full.
That's when you need to win the lottery and have a driver every day.
Or even better, have a helicopter fly from your house to your office building. Yeah. You don't have to drive on the road, but
that's wild.
Yeah, so it was a short. Just for our listeners, I attended a funeral there. Just kind of a tragic death of my cousin's wife, and it was just a sad occasion. And so we asked for your thoughts and prayers for her family during this time, and it should. I'm sure as time goes on, he'll have to kind of get through this. So,
what time did you get back home? Was it like
I think I got back to the house sometime around 8:30 that night. We left right after the church service. We couldn't stay for the actual burial because the way they did it was they had the church service, then a reception, then they went to the burial.
Oh, wow.
So it was a little different. I've never attended. I actually kind of like that.
Yeah.
And if we didn't have to get on the road, I would have said we could have stayed, but I mean, that would have put us leaving Dallas,
late.
2:30, maybe even closer to 3:00. And I was like, I don't want to be getting home at 11:00 at night. So I took my mother and my cousin, and they originally were going to go by themselves. And I said, no, I'm not going to have no 2 80-plus-year-old women driving from where we're at to all the way to Dallas and somehow fight that traffic. No. So I ended up doing it, and it was a nice little long trip.
Yeah.
But
Saturday, Hottie Dr. Miranda and I went to her daughter's reveal party.
Okay.
Yep, she's having a baby, and we went to that, and it was pretty fun. It was kind of out on the water, and nice little camp. She's having a boy.
Nice.
And Miranda is still trying to find the perfect grandmother name for her.
Okay.
But I have chosen Grumpy as my grandfather name.
Heck yeah.
So I'll be Grumpy.
I love that. That's great.
Yep. What'd you do?
Oh,
did you make any cookies?
No, but I have had
What
enough people.
Still waiting on this cookie.
I've had enough people put in some orders now that I think sometime next week I'm going to try and make another batch because I have a few events. So I'll make sure to
make another batch. You caught that, right?
Because I did one batch. It's only been one.
Well, I'm supposed to sit down with Stoney, and actually he's going to help me cook a big pot of gumbo. So I will trade you some gumbo.
There we go.
For some cookies. But so how about that?
This weekend, though, I went out to, as we talked about before, I think on the last episode, I went out to the Renaissance Festival.
Oh.
I have the one in Louisiana. Traveled out that direction and had a big fireworks finale, and I met made a handful of new friends from Nashville, Tennessee that came down to come hang out, and it was a lot of fun, and we all just hung out. And I probably got a little too drunk, but it's okay. I had a designated driver, so I was in the clear, but it was a lot of fun. We ended up all hanging out and having a great time, and I made some new friends, so that was the big highlight of the weekend. And then there was a big Christmas concert that I was a part of Sunday. That was a lot of work was going into that, and it sounded wonderful. It's
Were you drinking mead?
No, I was drinking a very heavy beer, Imperial Stout beer, and it was very.
That doesn't count. You need to get drunk on mead.
I
be authentic.
I had some mead when I went to the Renaissance Festival.
Yeah,
it's always good. I've got to have mead.
It's good. Sure. They have a few good brands, but they also at that location specifically, they have a handful of really good beers on tap.
When I can actually smell and taste stuff, Ian hooked me up with a great little mead. What was it, Viking Blood or something?
Viking's Blood. Yeah.
Have you had that one? I enjoyed that when I could actually taste stuff, and there was like three versions of it, right?
Yeah, there's a handful of different flavors that you can get, but the
Viking's blood.
Where blood, you order it?
They have a local market around here
that
sells it. It comes like in ceramic bottles, and the brand is Dansk.
What's the place we went to? It
was a Total Wine.
Total Wine, yes. Total Wine.
We have a Total Wine around us that has a lot of it. That's another place too.
They carry all the versions.
But Viking's blood specifically is mead, which is like honey wine.
Yeah.
But it's a mixture of hibiscus, flower, and I think like some sort of berry or something.
Okay.
It's like also kind of mixed in with it, so it comes out as like kind of a red purpley color.
Yep.
And it has that very the unique mead flavor, that kind of like that funky sweet kind of but it has all these like other nice characters to it. Anyways, it's fun. I don't have any right now, but I need to buy some. Actually, it's been a long time. So
I think I have a bottle. Maybe I'll bring it next week.
Go. Yeah, we might need to share.
Love that.
We can try it.
Have a little sip of mead.
Y'all can try it.
So it's a shame. I wish you could still do that, Stoney.
Well, the good thing about when you come and do the gumbo is I'll show you the process, and then you'll have to do all the taste testing to make sure we got all the right ingredients.
Right.
And I think what I'm going to do is my brother wants a gumbo too, so I've got a turkey carcass in the freezer. So I think when you come to do yours, we're just going to do 2 gumbos side by side, and just have fun with it.
Okay.
Oh, that does sound pretty cool.
Because I want some chicken in mine too.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. You can do a chicken and sausage, and I'll do a turkey and sausage, and we'll just go there. How about that?
Sounds good to me.
And I'll show you the holier than thou quad.
Mm-hmm.
You know what the Holy Trinity is, right?
Oh, definitely.
What's the Holy Trinity?
It's green onion, and celery, if I believe.
Green onion,
celery. I forgot what the last one was. I don't remember.
Come on.
I thought it was onions.
Onions?
Well, it's green onions, and then the white
green onions come at the very end. What's the Holy Trinity?
I don't know.
Oh, wow.
Wait a minute, I'm blowing a blank because I've always thought that was white onion.
Look at it on your little pad there. What's the whole? You got your little computer there,
and celery. I mean, I knew celery was in there.
Celery is in there. Onion is in there.
Yeah.
Come on.
Let's see.
Uh-oh.
I'm looking it up.
There we go.
Because he's a. Let's see here. We have. I felt dumb. It's onions, bell peppers, and celery.
There it is.
Bell pepper.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I did was, and that's very good, except for me, celery never really.
Celery adds a little bit of sweetness. I think.
Not even really. To me, celery is only a crunch. So what I did was, that's called the Holy Trinity, and that is normally the basis of all Cajun Creole food is started with the Holy Trinity. Well, I invented the holier than thou quad, and the holier than thou quad is onions, all 4 peppers, garlic, and rotel. And so I like.
In addition to the that's just a new one.
That's a new one. That's what I call the holier than thou quad. Instead of the Holy Trinity, the holier than thou quad. And I love the onions, and I use all 4 colors of the peppers: green, red, yellow, and orange.
Yep.
And then the rotel, just a little bit. It's not a whole bunch. And then garlic. And then, of course, at the very end of it, you do put the green onions, because if you put the green onions in the beginning, it just disappears and goes away. So I like the texture and the color from the stuff too. I like for my food to look nice,
right,
and give you a little texture when you're eating it too. So that's why I do.
I'll have to try this.
You're gonna learn the holier than thou.
The holier than thou.
And I even shared it here with all of our listeners.
That's right.
And if you have any questions, please feel free to write in at getoffendedtogether@gmail.com.
That's right.
And throw your ideas out here, because we do love talking food and fellowship and hanging out together. So, speaking of fellowship and hanging out together,
that's a good segue into our episode.
Okay,
what's the topic today?
Well, I kind of, it's always been in the news. It's especially when people start talking about conspiracy theories and stuff like that. But there are groups of people that are known that we talk about on a regular basis. And so I thought we would have an episode, kind of a 10,000-foot view of what we would call secret societies.
Right. Just a general discussion on secret societies because there are so many rabbit holes.
Oh, yes.
There are so many different directions to go in this, and we're kind of hoping this will turn into some other episodes talking about maybe some specific societies. But
we could definitely go into a lot more. Just kind of, I know just doing some research for this podcast, it was like, there's a lot of stuff on this. And
well, I did something kind of fun.
Okay.
I said, what are the top 15 secret societies from the world?
Okay.
All right.
Unless I tell you what, I'm going to go up. How about that? We'll go up. Number 15, the Black Hand. Anybody familiar with that one? Okay. The Council of Foreign Relations.
Yep, heard of that one.
Unfortunately, the Ku Klux Klan.
Yep.
Number 12 is the Thule Society.
Yep, Thule.
Yep, Thule, I'm sorry. Thank you. The Bohemian Groove.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Number 10, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn.
Yep.
Yep. This one's interesting because there's a lot of stuff. This is a rabbit hole in itself. Opus Dei.
Yes.
That we could do 2 hours on that one and barely even scratch the surface.
Yeah. I know about Opus Dei as a Catholic.
Mm-hmm. Number 8, the Bilderberg Group.
Yep.
7 is the Order of the Golden Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
And this one has a lot to it, too. And they've even been a couple of movies about this one, The Priory of Sion.
Yep.
Skull and Bones is number 5. And I always never pronounce this one right. The Rosicrucians.
The Rosicrucians.
Rosicrucians, yeah. Then number 3 is the Knights Templar, which I disagree with them being number 3. Number 2 is the Freemasons.
What this is the most popular, or what is it?
This is just
or the top
okay,
gotcha.
ones.
Probably about. I imagine they generate the list from the amount of internet searches for these particular groups.
Sorry. Number 2 is Freemasons, and number 1 is the Illuminati.
Oh, that's a biggie.
And that's
That's
different because all the musicians supposedly have their own Illuminati, and you got to sell your soul to the devil for this to make this music and blah, blah, blah. But the original Illuminati was started in 1776 in Bavaria.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I think it was an attempt to it was anti-Catholic because it was fighting the authority of the church in Bavaria. A matter of fact, I hate to say a lot of these groups,
Are Catholic or anti-Catholic.
Oh yeah, generally are there is some origins of, originally these groups served a way for like-minded people to kind of share their ideas, and because they originated at a time that saying this stuff out loud could have dire social consequences for doing so. So a lot of these groups started out as ways for people to kind of like, have brotherhood or sisterhood or whatever the case may be, and kind of share some things that were not very
But also there's
popular.
a lot of connections among these groups.
Right.
The Illuminati, the Freemasons, and the Bilderberg Group are all so supposedly interconnected, they think one is the same. Now, the Bilderberg Group is a different thing of people that get together every year in Europe and supposedly have these super secret meetings. Fun fact about that group is you cannot be a pilot for them if you've had the vaccination. You cannot pilot a plane that transport these people if you've had the vaccination.
Well, believe it or not, just somewhat in recent times, a lot of people would recognize the name of Justice Antonin Scalia.
Mm-hmm.
He had spent his last hours in a secret society that he was a member of.
Really?
Yeah. It was the International Order of St. Hubertus. It's basically a secret society that deals with hunters.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was that particular society, which I didn't know anything about this society. I mean, I read about it. It was instituted by an Austro-Hungarian Count Franz Anton Spark in 1695 and named after St. Hubert. St. Hubert, just for our listener, was a hunter who once saw a golden cross between the horns of a stag. Hubert heeded the divine message and thereafter chose a life of piety. Spark's order aimed to honor St. Hubert's memory and promote responsible hunting and wildlife conservation, according to its official website. And its membership was, they denied actually membership to Adolf Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Which he officially dissolved it. And then, of course, it was reconstituted after World War II. And there's an American chapter founded in the late 60s. So, obviously, they have a lot of groups that exists that I didn't know about. Of course, I knew about all the regulars, the Illuminati and the Knights Templar and the Freemasons and.
Well, a third of U.S. presidents have been Freemasons.
Yes.
That we know of.
Right. It's an interesting organization. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think they date their membership back to the Middle Ages of the order of people who built cathedrals. And so they were able to recognize one another when they traveled from city to city by symbols and signs. And, of course, that's where probably handshakes and, all that stuff, kind of developed over time.
How many presidents were Skull and Bones? Now, remember, Skull and Bones comes from Yale.
Right. I mean, I do know, like, the Bushes were.
The Bushes were?
I'm not.
William Taft. So there was three that we know of. Three.
Right. I mean, that's, what was it that movie came out? Skulls or whatever.
Something like that.
Something like that.
That was actually a pretty good movie.
Yeah, it was.
That was an interesting
The
movie.
Skulls, I think it was called. So, yeah. I mean, it's a...
well, the Vanderbilts, the Rockefellers, and the Buckleys were all Skull and Bones also.
Yeah.
It was started in, I think, 1831 or 1832? I can't remember. But
forever ago.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a lot of these secret societies that they did provoke a backlash. I mean, I was reading here, there was, believe it or not, they said a national uproar against secret societies led one concerned group to create an annual anti-secret society convention in 1869.
Wow.
In Chicago. And the attendees went after the, in quotes, secular press. The organization's secretary said that journalists either approved or ignored secret societies, while few religious papers have spoken enough to come out for Christ in opposition to Masonry. But by 1892, the convention, which deemed clandestine clubs to be evil to society and a menace to our civil institutions, had failed to secure them anything but strong denunciation, the Pittsburgh Dispatch reported. So, yeah, there's a lot of information The improved, benevolent, and protective order of Elks of the world.
What in the
You hear about that one?
No, I'm not. We're getting into the what is it? B, C tier secret society?
I mean, look, I'm reading this article. It's the 8 secret societies you probably haven't heard of.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's
so. I mean, it's
factual.
It's they have the Grand Orange Lodge of Ireland. Okay. This one's more commonly known as the Orange Order, derives its name from William of Orange, a Protestant prince who later ruled over Britain and Ireland with his wife Mary. The order was founded in 1795 after the Battle of the Diamond, a clash between Catholics and Protestants outside Loughgall, a small village in modern-day Northern Ireland. Any of our listeners who are from Ireland, I apologize if I'm not pronouncing some of these words correctly. Its purpose was to protect Protestants who were the majority in Ireland's northern provinces, but were outnumbered by Catholics in the rest of the country. By the mid-19th century, secret societies were banned in Ireland, with an 1823 act declaring such groups an unlawful combination and confederacy. Given this prohibition, General William Frederick Villiers, the Lord Lieutenant of Iceland, attracted the ire of Waterford News for supporting the Orange Order in 1849. The paper wrote, Lord Clarendon has been holding communication with an illegal society in Dublin for upwards of 10 days. The Grand Orange Lodge, with its secret signs and passwords, has begun plotting with His Excellency during the whole of that period. This may seem strange, but this is a fact. It's still an active order today, believe it or not.
Wow.
What about the Oddfellows?
No.
I've heard of them.
Really?
Yeah, they said the exact origins have faded into history, but a website of a North Carolina branch of the Altruistic Society states that several chapters existed in England by the 18th century. The lodges were originally formed by working men for social purposes and for giving the brethren aid and assisting them to obtain employment when out of work, the website notes. And you would think a lot of these things, I mean, this was before the days of government social network,
right.
you know. Yeah. So, I mean, this is how kind of groups took care of one another. Mm-hmm. They just kind of banded together, and oftentimes they formed, you know, kind of their own symbols and signs, right. And, you know, of kind of taking care of your own, so right. to speak. So, yeah.
Well, it was a brotherhood. Still is. It's just they're being run differently by the different generations, which was an interesting take to look into, and how they're being run generationally, as we're a generational show.
Right.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff out there on
the
secret
Knights of Pythias.
I think I've heard of that one.
The Knights of Pythias.
Yeah.
They were actually founded, they say government employee Justice H. Rathbone founded this group in Washington, D.C. in 1864. He felt that the U.S., then embroiled in the Civil War, needed an organization that practiced brotherly love. Rathbone named the order after the Greek legend of Damon and Pythias, a tale of personal sacrifice for the purpose of friendship. The group was the first fraternal order to be chartered by an act of Congress. After review by President Abraham Lincoln. The Knight of Pythias colors are blue, yellow, and red, signifying friendship, charity, and benevolence, respectfully.
Nice.
So they're not all bad.
Some of them, yeah.
You know, or not all have what I would call, you know, kind kind of sinister,
right,
origins attached to them.
Which is good to hear, because I feel like a lot of times when I think of secret society, it's always the
it's always bad or some
always the rituals
nefarious. There's some satanic origin or something.
There's a catacomb somewhere that everyone's all dressed up in and doing suspicious activities. But yeah,
but I mean the movie Angels and Demons and the Da Vinci Code really kind of ignited a lot of interest in secret societies. Especially the groups like the Freemasons, Opus Dei, even the Knights Templar. The Knights Templar is an interesting group.
Yeah,
yes, they are. Did you know that they basically invented banking, checks, banking fees? They've done a lot.
Yeah, after they have, I was kind of reading about them a little bit, and
what did you find out?
Well, I'm just kind of their kind of what happened to them. It was basically after the end of the Crusades and the fall of Acre. They all returned to France, and I believe the King of France, I believe it was Philip V. If I have to go back and look exactly, but the King of France. He had a lot of money.
Yeah,
he owed them, and he wanted a loan, and they basically said no.
So what he did was he passed a law and says you can't be richer than the King of France, and so he passed this law, and he called the Pope up on their special phone that they had way back then, and he says, "I need you to excommunicate all these guys." And
he basically needed them to dissolve the order because it was a religious.
I was going to get there.
Yeah.
Okay, and declare them heretics and traitors so that he could assassinate over 1,000 of them on the original Friday the 13th.
That's right.
And what they did not realize was that what his plan was to kill them and take all their stuff.
Right.
But the group split into two. Half of them were killed and half of them disappeared. Because if you remember, where was the commandery in Jerusalem? Do you know where the commandery was in Jerusalem? Underneath the Temple of Solomon.
Right. Yeah, because they...
So what did they find? No one knows.
Yeah, there's all kind of stories about what they found. I mean, I've read things where they held the bones of Jesus Christ and...
The Holy Grail, the Ark of the Covenant.
All of those things. Whether that's true or not, people make the claim they have it. If they have it,
they were a pretty wealthy organization at one time. They got gold and stuff from somewhere, right?
Yeah. Well, they need to. To me, and this is what I think about some of this stuff. I mean, of course, as a Christian. I don't believe there's no bones of Jesus Christ because Jesus Christ rose from the dead.
Right.
Otherwise, Christianity is not real if you don't have the resurrection. To me, something that big, why they have not, considering today's age of anti-religious fervor.
Yeah.
Let's think about it. You think they would have basically come out and said, okay, we're going to prove it. Here it is. And kind of do the testing like they've done with the Shroud of Turin, which they've done extensive stuff with that shroud. And what I saw lately was pretty much confirmed that was the burial cloth of Jesus Christ. But
I think the bones is a story. I think when you are a secret society, people like to make stuff up about it and try to tempt you into revealing your position or yourself. And I think that happens with the Freemasons. I think that happens with a lot of organizations like that. People just want to tempt you to showing your hand, so to speak. And I think that's a story that's kind of popped up to do that. It's like they played with what the Holy Grail was in one of the movies. What was the Holy Grail?
That was the cup of where that was the cup Christ used at the Last Supper.
Okay, but what did the Holy Grail wind up being? His descendants.
Right. It was through Mary Magdalene.
Mary Magdalene. So I think they like to poke out there to kind of fish and see what's really out there. And I mean, it's fun for entertainment, but it
kind of goes back to the story of the Grail, of King Arthur. Mm-hmm. Supposedly the legend that Joseph of Arimathea, shortly after the death of Christ, took a gathering of those early Christians or followers of Christ, and they went to England.
Right.
And supposedly where the Grail would renew the land, and there's got a lot of symbolism there and everything else. Whether it's true or not, who knows? Now I one time read that actually the Freemasons actually came from the Knights Templar. Well, now I don't know if that's true or not, but I don't know, for the longest time that is what the Knights Templars morphed into.
Well, what happened was, on the assassination day, a lot of the Templars went into hiding, and a lot of them went into the Freemasons. Some of them went into the Hospitallers. They still wanted their organization, but they had to do it in the hide. So there are Templars supposedly in the Freemasons. Now, are they the original Templars? No. There's something else that's happened. The original split is still hidden. They're still watching. They're still observing. They're still doing things to protect certain things that don't need to happen or need to happen in God's time. And they're preventing it from happening in man's time. But yes, they did go into the Masons and the Hospitallers and a couple of other groups like that. So, but are they the originals? No.
Well, as I said, they're an interesting group. There's a lot of information on the Knights Templars, and I often wonder if
how much of that is real.
Well, we don't. A lot of this stuff we don't know is right. Real. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of embellishment with some of this stuff, because I mean, the thing about secret society is, they're secret and intrigues people, and people have a tendency of probably adding more stuff to it than what it actually is. But I mean, is there some sinister group controlling the world? Some would say the Illuminati's doing that. I mean, it's what's recently transpired in our news today. We've been seeing a lot of people with black eyes. Some people say that's some sort of secret society, or the Black Eye Society. That I was listening to this podcast regarding this Black Eye Society, and they were saying that the actual black eye is some sort of procedure that enables them to see. It kind of pierced the illusion of our world. Believe it or not.
What's the movie? They Live.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, already put the glasses on.
I guess in some way. I mean, I was listening to this podcast. I believe it was called Spraker, was the name of it, if I'm not mistaken. But there was an episode on secret societies and that kind of stuff, and what I was able to pick up, it was some sort of surgical procedure that enabled you to pierce the veil into the world of the supernatural. So you'd be able to actually see spirits. Mm-hmm. Whether now that's true or not, I don't know. I mean, everybody saw Jay Leno with, his eye all messed up and all this stuff. And he explained what happened with that. He had fallen down. But there's a lot of these, actors and actresses that seem to have a black eye, which seems kind of weird. I mean, every now and then somebody get a black eye, but when you got everybody getting a black eye, it kind of like, okay, what's happening here? So, it's interesting to hear some of the stories on that. But here, I mean, just some other of these kind of out of the way kind of groups. Interesting here, the Ancient Order of Foresters.
Yeah.
Known today as the Foresters Friendly Society. So this group was established in England as the Ancient Order of Foresters in 1834. Gosh. According to their website, founding members organized to help people as they walk through life, as they walk through the forests of life, establishing a communal system of funding reminiscent of the unemployment insurance programs or labor unions seen today. Back then, members recognized that by paying a few pence a week into a common fund, they would be able to offer sick pay and funeral grants when needed, the website noted. So this kind of goes back to what I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
A lot of these groups founded with actually a way of, it was kind of a very primitive way of government, before the idea of government programs, came about.
Right.
So
I didn't realize you were going to sneak off to that one so quick, but who is pretty famous right now that had the black eye, right?
Who's that?
Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh, really?
Well, they say supposedly he got that, I think, in a judo accident.
Okay, and Jay Leno supposedly fell
down,
and how many people are supposedly having these accidents? It was an accident. But now all these people are just kind of popping up with black eyes all of a sudden.
That's the new one right now. I mean, I was reading something that this was which I thought was interesting listening to this podcast on the black eye, that it as being some sort of procedure that enables you to pierce the illusion of this world and actually see the real world, which is, all the demonic activity that surrounds us and why our world is in such terrible shape and just
it's gotta be
craziness.
A scary thing to have, though.
Yeah, I don't know if I would want to see that every moment of my life.
If I could switch it off, maybe.
Well, that's why they only do it in one eye. You can close that one eye.
Yeah, maybe so. But,
so if all of a sudden if you see people walking around with one eye closed, you know what they're doing.
Or if all of a sudden eye patches become fashion again.
Yeah, I know. I mean, just some of this. I mean, it's, as I said, how true this is, and I look. Right now, with all the stuff that's come out with the Diddy stuff and the Epstein stuff, I think some of these things are probably becoming a little bit more palatable.
Well, this is the new Illuminati, okay, when they're doing the little diamond thing with their hands and stuff like that. Exactly. When you're supposedly selling your soul to the devil to make music, when who are you selling your soul to? Some of these guys where you got to pay money, you want Jay-Z on your album, you're cutting him a check no matter whether that album does good or not.
Right.
So,
well,
who's this Illuminati?
Well, I mean, I think the idea of especially in entertainment, and we touched on this, guys. If you remember. Back when we did the episode on frequencies, the CIA, and they have been involved with the manipulation of frequencies in mind control. It goes back a long way.
Yes, it does.
And I'm wondering if this is why certain music seems to sell and others doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about particular things that just seem to catch people? I'm wondering if there's something there. I'm always kind of like throwing out that little question mark. Don't discount it. I know it may sound a little crazy. Yeah. But keep an open mind with some of this stuff. You have to kind of be able to kind of sift through stuff and kind of get to the truth behind it. But I was thinking about this, that came to my brain with the idea that, I find it strange that all these music entertainers seem to be caught up in this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I just like, what is world's going on with this?
Well, see, I was kind of curious about that. And so I used AI. And there's a hashtag out there, for our listeners that know, Stoney for President. So what I did was I was conversing with AI, and I said, how hard would it be to start a new secret society on the hashtag, based on the hashtag Stoney for President? And I said, I want you to develop everything. There's already 40 applicants that I don't even know about that want to join the secret society.
I think you need to go with it.
Stoney for President.
I think you need to go with it.
I was just curious. It even broke it down. I said, remember, this is a generational podcast. So it broke it down on how boomers, if they were in power, if they were in the authority, how the purpose, the structure, the operations, the communications, it even developed signatures on like the signet rings and things like that, how Gen X would run the society, how the millennials would run the society, how Gen Z would run the society, and what it would be based on.
Right.
And it was so interesting that the boomers view Stoney as a stoic leader of timeless values.
Okay.
The Gen X embraces Stoney as the countercultural icon fighting against the system. Mm-hmm. Millennials transform Stoney into a unifying figure for global collaboration, which kind of worried me about the New World Order. And Gen Z turns Stoney into a meme-powered phenomenon, breaking barriers with technology and creativity. And I'm like, oh my God, what did I just do?
Dang.
So it was really interesting to see how much stuff is on the internet and the thought process in these things. It was goofy, and I just So basically, the boomers would be the Grand Quarry. That would be the name of it. The Gen X would be the Rock Rebels. That would be the name of the society. And the millennials would be the Stoney Collective. And Gen Z would be Stoney Stands United.
That's good.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I just thought it was funny. Trying to take a different take on this, because I know this is going to turn into some other stuff, but I was kind of concerned when, just goofing around what AI is doing on the internet to have 40 people already wanting to apply to be members of this with no website, with no nothing. And I'm like, oh, Lord Jesus, help me.
Here we are.
Yeah. So thought y'all would get a kick out of that.
Yeah, that's fun.
Well,
you're going to give people ideas now.
That's right. Stoney for President.
I'm telling you, Stoney, you need to roll with that. You need to take it and run with it. You might form your own secret society.
Well, that was kind of the idea. I just didn't realize it would be that easy.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
I also find it interesting. It sounds like a lot of these secret societies started in like the 1800s at some point in time.
They did,
which is interesting.
Well, the Freemasons and the Templars were hundreds of years before that. But a lot of them do seem like it popped up in the late 1800s, back when all the Rockefellers, Vanderbilts, Rothschilds, and all of this money started. They wanted to kind of control some things and keep their itinerary of the world in secret, so to speak. So,
well, we I mean, some of this stuff is just absolutely, it's. I mean, some of this stuff is all over the place. I don't know. I don't want to be like automatically discount this stuff.
Yeah.
Because I do try to keep an open mind with some of this stuff. But God, I mean, some of the stuff can be wild.
Well, how about this? Would either of y'all be part of a secret society like this? And if you would, what type of a society would you want to be a member of?
I don't know, man.
Well, I believe it or not, I thought about one time want to be at Opus Dei.
Really?
Yeah.
I could see that.
I want to be Opus Dei. Or Opus D. I forget how it's pronounced.
I think it's both.
Opus, it's D.
Depending on where
I believe it's called.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's D.
Unfortunately, it was kind of made out to be, they kind of, with the way, Dan Brown introduced the mad monk, and he would whip himself, and of course there's a lot of truth in that, because there was a lot of people back in the early days of especially what they call the monastic period of Christianity, for mortification of the flesh, and the idea of that's how I would obtain pleasing to God, because unfortunately a byproduct of early Christian thought was the tension that existed between the flesh and the spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, of course there was Gnostic groups that basically adopted a view that the body, anything associated with the flesh, was bad,
right,
and was evil, and which kind of flew against the idea of that God created the body, and so the body is sacred. But I could understand how some people would take some of Paul's writings and basically come to a conclusion that the body is bad and the spirit is good. So what happens is you start to see some heresies develop in the early times of Christianity, of the dual nature, duality, and all these things. And there are a lot of different names for some of these heresies that occurred in the early church, where the body, they was like, the body's terrible, and they was basically telling people don't even get married and don't have children because the act of copulating was sinful and terrible, because anything to do with the flesh was evil and of the devil and everything else. So it's like, well, how's society is supposed to operate here? But unfortunately, some of those practices kind of evolved in time with some of these religious orders of mortifying the flesh.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, of course, that was really kind of somewhat of an extreme view of that, which has been condemned. I mean, I know as a Catholic that the body is to be sacred, is not to be abused, and not to be so the do anything to hurt the body is actually bad. But I could see how that could evolve over time, with that kind of thinking.
And that's maybe what we can do in the future on some of these, is just start, pick one or two of them and kind of look at the good and bad of each.
Right.
What good have they done, and where has it gone in a kind of an evil, dark direction?
I would love to get somebody from Opus Dei.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
To come on. I don't think I know anybody. I do know some people who are lay people who are members of a Franciscan order.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But that's different.
Yeah.
I think Opus Dei would be interesting.
Opus Dei would be interesting, but the question is who, I don't even know who that would be. I've got some feelers out for some people and some topics I'd love to talk about.
Yeah.
We need somebody that is an expert
right
in that.
Right.
So yeah.
And I've got a friend of mine who's a Mason, and I've asked if he could be interested in coming on, and he's pondering it right now.
Yeah, because a lot of them a bit. I mean, and Masons. Of course, I can't be. As a Catholic, you can't have anything to do with Masonry.
Really?
Right.
I didn't know that.
It's prohibited. Matter of fact, the church has put out over 20 decrees on Freemasons, even though there are some Catholics. Now, unfortunately, what's happened, because the origin of Freemasonry, oftentimes it came about in opposition to the Catholic Church.
Oh, okay, I see.
So
I didn't know that either. Yeah.
And once again, this is what I'm saying. Kind of goes back to what I said earlier. A lot of these groups were ways for people to come together and share things that they could not share out in public.
Because a lot of the times the church and some of the things that, the Catholic Church did was to control the people.
Right.
So they did these things in secret so that the church would know what they were doing. Because they were scared of being excommunicated.
Right. We can't, it's hard to forget people to understand what excommunication meant.
Oh, yeah.
Prior to, what happened during the Reformation.
Right.
We kind of we think of the term excommunication as something that, whatever, it doesn't carry the weight it once did. Matter of fact, I think the last person I know of that I'd heard about and just reading about that the church excommunicated was Leander Perez. If you remember, Leander Perez was the parish president of Plaquemines Parish in Louisiana. And he was excommunicated because of his virulent segregationist views.
Wow, okay.
So the church actually excommunicated him from the faith. And that basically means that you're prohibited from receiving the sacraments. So, let's go back in time to the idea that there is no salvation outside the church. So the idea of being excommunicated, which means I can't receive the sacraments, I can't receive the sacrament of reconciliation, I can't receive the Eucharist, which means I was damned to hell. So that carried with it a very powerful social power over people.
Right.
Because there was, nothing else. I mean, we live in a world now that, the results of the Reformation, what happened after that with the fracturing of Christianity into various groups, all with sometimes very different opinions on some very essential things. But prior to that, that was it.
Yeah.
And so it carried with it a very powerful penalty. So, excommunication now, it doesn't nearly carry the weight.
Well, most people realize salvation doesn't come from the church. Salvation comes from Christ. Period.
So, but
they use that fear.
Well,
to control the population.
But as I said, it carried with it that much weight because of just how the social order, how society had evolved from the time of Christ to then how Europe evolved and such and such. So a lot of these groups formed as a means of communicating with each other to basically circumvent the church. So that's why Catholics cannot be. Now, there are many Catholics that joined Masons.
Right.
They did. Part of the reason why eventually the church had to come out and say what it did on Masonry. Now, a lot of people think when it comes to Masons, they think of the Shriners. And the Shriners are an outgrowth of some of Masonry. So to an ordinary person, well, the Shriners go out and help people. Why
they're
would
not exactly a secret society.
They're not really a secret society. I mean, they have their own rituals and stuff like that, but they're not what people, when we think of, at least when we think of what Freemasonry was, where it came from, how it evolved, is different than what.
Well, when you think of the Shriners, you're not thinking of world domination.
Exactly.
When you think of the Templars or the
you're not thinking
Dei
of
or the Freemasons, you're thinking Illuminati.
Permeating the very fabric of our society and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I couldn't be a Mason at all. I'm a Knight of Columbus, which is a different organization, which is a Catholic organization. That's a little bit different deal. But Opus Dei is a completely different deal, and Opus Dei is in essence it was a religious order, actually, I believe, founded by a priest in, I believe, South America, if I'm not mistaken, is where it came from.
But it's mostly for lay people. It's
it's
run by the couple of top people or some but
it's made up of both. It's made up of religious.
There's no nuns. There's no things like that in it. It's just a group of lay people.
Yeah,
but
that want a better life because they believe that everybody should aspire to be a saint.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? And Opus Dei supposedly tries to help you do that if possible.
Now, the Golden Dawn, they have a cult organization like the Golden Dawn and Scientology have adopted Masonic rituals in its hierarchy of initiation. But, once again, sometimes different groups kind of borrow other things and they use that within their own
their own practices and stuff.
Exactly. They say here, sometimes secret societies can be infiltrated and weaponized by bad actors. The way Jeffrey Epstein used the Edge Foundation to curry favor and protect himself.
Wow.
So, here it is, somebody that's, a lot of these organizations were probably good. And unfortunately, you get some bad actors that kind of warp some of that, and it can kind of give this impression. But Americans have always been kind of fascinated with secret societies. I mean, the whole idea it's secret, of course, that makes gets the
wonder.
It gets the senses tingling.
Yeah,
what's
the
going
curiosity.
On? What's going on there?
Yeah.
So
that's cool. I'm excited. Also, like we had mentioned a little while ago, we were talking about potentially kind of deep diving into one of these on in a future episode. So maybe not immediately, but in the next few episodes that we could pick one of these and
let's just pick a couple of them.
Right, and go a little bit more into detail of all of it. So,
okay.
Well, we got a website. Retrospectpodcast.com. We got the email, getoffendedtogether@gmail.com.
Yep. We also have, you can go on to, usually you can type in Retrospect Pod and find most places that we're at. Spotify, you can leave comments now, as well as YouTube channel.
And if I could add there, a couple of times there's so many out there and people are trying to find something. If you type in Retrospect and Stoney or Retrospect Jason or Retrospect Ian, it helps kind of bring you to that because sometimes it can get lost.
Yeah.
So
many different ways. Or again, if you don't want to deal with all that kind of stuff, in each one of the episodes, they have a link there, and that link brings you to all of the. It's our .cards website thing where it has all the links. So if you want to find any stuff there, you can
and share us.
Yeah,
put us out there.
You know how it is.
Let that be our Christmas present. Share us to 100 people and say Merry Christmas.
Love it. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, we've unraveled the mysteries of secret societies, or maybe we've just added a few more layers to the intrigue. Either way, let's agree on one thing. If a secret society is ever looking for a charismatic podcast hosting leader, they know where to find Stoney. Thanks for tuning in to the Retrospect Podcast. Until next time, keep your secrets safe and your conspiracies entertaining.
But until next time, thank you so much for listening. Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone, and God bless.
Hey, thanks for hanging out with us today. You're the best. Peace.